Good afternoon. I hope you have had a moment to grab a quick lunch so that we can begin our afternoon lunchtime side event. It's on intangible cultural heritage and tertiary education. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome you on behalf of UNESCO as the moderator of this roundtable session on intangible cultural heritage and tertiary education. I'm Jyoti Hosagrahar, and I'm the director for the Division of Creativity at UNESCO. And I'm pleased to pass the floor to our host, Mr. He Kwan, and Director General of the International Information and Networking Center for Intangible Cultural Heritage in the Asia-Pacific region, under the auspices of UNESCO. We also call this ICHCAP. Please, Mr. He.
Thank you, Jyoti, the Hosagraha. Welcome to the round table. I'm a DG, the Director General of the ICHCAP, which is one of the Category 2 centers for ICH safeguarding in Asia and the Pacific region. Since its establishment in 2011, my center has been working for the information sharing and network building. In line with this, our mandate, we are going to make an effort the setting up the regional networks of higher educational institutions in the field of intangible cultural heritages. First of all, I'd like to welcome all the distinguished committee members and the delegate, NGOs, the experts, the observers, and the colleagues to the round table. This co-organized round table by the UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage section and the ICHCAP is taking place here today. Since many actors in the field of intangible cultural heritage recognize a pivotal role of tertiary education in ICH safeguarding. We all agree, and then I'm very happy to listen many voices from the delegate yesterday and today. So the education can play a valuable role in safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. The Article 2.3 and 14 of 2003 Convention and the adoption of the new charter of the operational directives for implementing sustainable development, especially the highlight the important role of education in ICH safeguarding. In particular, the promoting the tertiary education is significantly important, since it helps future decision makers, administrators, and practitioners to work in the field of intangible cultural heritage. Given the interdependence between intangible cultural heritage safeguarding and the tertiary education, recognizing and strengthening the role of tertiary educational institute as important contributor to the ICH safeguarding is important task that one should not overlook. So ICHCAP is also making effort to reflect this orientation through a collaborative survey in Asia and the Pacific with the UNESCO Bangkok office to gain more knowledge on how to integrate the ICH into tertiary educational program and support university networking in this field. In tandem with several UNESCO initiatives, mainly focusing on bringing the intangible cultural heritage and education, I hope this round table can create a shared understanding on the interface between the intangible cultural heritage and tertiary education, and how integrating intangible cultural heritage into tertiary education in different countries, in different contexts. Also, I believe we all can contribute toward achieving sustainable development goal on quality of education in broad sense. In closing, I'd like to send my special thanks to our panelists of the round table, and each CAP will continue its cooperative effort with the various actors in Asia and the Pacific region to promote the dialogue about the ICH and education. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. He. We're very grateful that ICHCAP is hosting this event and that your center is supporting networking in the Asia Pacific amongst universities that are integrating intangible heritage in their programs, and the close collaboration also with the Bangkok office. So, dear committee members, dear participants, today we are here to talk about the important role that tertiary education institutions play in training future decision makers, planners and administrators to work in the field of safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. This field is of critical importance for the 2003 Convention. Currently, teaching about intangible heritage is dispersed throughout many different disciplines. Universities are integrating intangible heritage in programs on anthropology, cultural studies, linguistics, performing arts, museum studies, archaeology, fine art, history, and more. And a great diversity of approaches to integrating exists out there. There are entire programs dedicated to intangible heritage, or in other cases, intangible heritage is just one part of a course on a larger topic. These are just two examples, but there are many other approaches that exist there as well and that are possible. So for this reason, UNESCO has organized the first regional symposium in Asia Pacific in 2015 on integrating intangible cultural heritage in tertiary education. During the panel, our colleague Dong Bit-hun will share with you the ongoing work they're doing on this topic in the Asia Pacific region. Recently, we expanded our work on intangible heritage and tertiary education to Latin America and the Caribbean. Just a few weeks ago, the UNESCO office in Montevideo held a regional meeting on cooperation mechanisms for intangible cultural heritage and higher education in Buenos Aires, Argentina. And I see here the director of CRESPIAL, the Regional Center for Safeguarding of the ICH in Latin America. Our center collaborated with us on this. The meeting particularly focused on those institutions that are incorporating intangible heritage in cultural management programs. Participants agreed to set up a cooperation and exchange network regarding intangible heritage in the sphere of higher education. In this respect, they defined a first draft of operational provisions and short and medium-term commitments for this new regional cooperation mechanism. In Europe, UNESCO is supporting the European Network on Cultural Management and Policy, NCAT, which is also seeking to understand current trends in training programs on intangible heritage. The network has completed a study mapping programs in Europe, looking at national education ministries' lists of higher education programs. Their preliminary results show that intangible heritage is present in higher education programs as content, and it appears less often as a subject and even less often as a program title. This leads us to believe that while ICH is often present, it is not yet the focus of these programs and these courses. Next year, UNESCO plans to launch similar work in Africa. So the momentum is building. We know that intangible heritage is being included in university programs, and we know that there is room for it to play a greater role. These regional activities confirm the wide interest in the topic. It is no longer a question of whether it should be integrated, but rather how. And that is exactly the question that we are here to discuss today. We will speak with professors, NGOs, and UNESCO colleagues who are passionately engaged in integrating intangible heritage in tertiary education. Their role is to generate discussion on how tertiary education institutions can go about the work of integrating intangible cultural heritage. A warm welcome to our panelists. Let me introduce them. We have here Dr. Christoph Wolff, Professor of Anthropology and Philosophy of Education at the Free University of Berlin, Germany, and Vice President of the German Commission of UNESCO and Chair of the German Intangible Cultural Heritage Expert Committee. You may have on your programs previously Professor Tiago de Oliveira Pinto from the University of Music Franz Liszt Weimar, but Professor Wolff has kindly agreed to join us as Professor Tiago was not able to join us in the last minute due to health reasons. So thank you very much, Christoph. We have next Dr. Annie Tom Tebet, anthropologist and professor at St. Joseph University of Beirut. And we have Barbara Babwetira, Deputy Director of the Cross-Cultural Foundation of Uganda, CCFU. And of course, we have here Dongbish Han, Chief of Unit and UNESCO Program Specialist for Culture at the UNESCO office in Bangkok. So perhaps, Han, we can begin with you. The UNESCO office in Bangkok has recently completed a survey of tertiary education institutions. What have the results of the survey revealed in terms of how intangible heritage is currently being integrated in the Asia-Pacific region? We just talked about some of the other regions, and I thought it would be interesting to begin with asking you about the survey that you just completed.
Thank you, Jyoti. Good afternoon to you all. For the interest of time, let me just go directly to the question. So between July and October 2017, just a few months back, in collaboration with ICCAP, we have carried out a survey on the tertiary education institutions for intangible cultural heritage in Asia-Pacific region. So methodology-wise, it was an online survey followed by desk study, mainly looking at the website of these programs and in universities, and then interview directly on Skype. We have received responses from 37 universities from 18 countries in Asia-Pacific. And with these 37 universities feature 47 degrees and postgraduate programs and 3 individual courses that have the ICH content. Outside in the, on the desk, when you come in, we have left the publication. It's a brochure that shows very quickly the results of the survey. And if you look at page 5, you will see how we categorize different varying degrees of how ICH has been integrated into the programs and degrees. From being a sole focus of the program, there are a few universities in that category, going down to where the degrees and postgraduate program highly relate to ICH, and then going down to where it is one course being reflected in a larger program like on architecture or design or medical program. So we found that teaching and learning ICH are relevant to many academic disciplines, the range of disciplines that Jyoti mentioned, those things that are pretty classically, traditionally related to ICH. We also see that there's an increasing reflection of ICH in programs that traditionally focus on tangible cultural heritage. Those programs on archaeology, architecture, cultural heritage management, which traditionally focus on built heritage. So that really shows that there's the need to reflect holistically the way that we safeguard both tangible and intangible cultural heritage, and I think this is also a very interesting topic that we can pursue. So in addition to these 47 programs, there are also 20 institutions expressed that they are in the process of developing ICH-related courses and degrees. And 12 universities are thinking of that and would be interested in doing that if there would be supports from, in terms of technical support. And it's interesting to note that 30% of these universities and degrees use UNESCO capacity building materials. So this is, I think, is a very, very encouraging news. There are more than half of these institutions use English as either as a sole language of instruction or in a bilingual program. So that also really provides a lot of opportunities for exchange among lecturers and students and also collaboration. So of course that is just a very quick vignette, and then we cannot claim that this is representing fully what is going on in the region, but because this is solely depending on the responses that we receive. But I think that there's a very positive potential to really work on this further, and I think that would be something that I could talk about a bit toward later of this panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Christoph, maybe if I could turn to you and ask you, since you're a professor of anthropology and philosophy of education at the Free University in Berlin, in Germany, are you actively working to integrate intangible heritage in the higher education, in tertiary education? Can you tell us about your reasons for doing this and what some of the methods you're using are?
Yeah, thank you very much. Good afternoon. You know, we have some difficulties in Germany with immaterial cultural heritage, tangible cultural heritage. That's related to the history, because many of the practices we have in Germany were used by the National Socialists and by the fascists, and so they got an interpretation which we have to be aware of, and we are trying to liberate actually the perception of intangible cultural heritage of the general public through our activities. And I think we were quite successful. You know, when you look at the universities, in many areas, courses and bachelor, master theses are actually offered in the field of intangible cultural heritage. This is quite interesting, and also in the field of doctoral theses. I know at least 10, 15 doctoral theses which are in the making. Of course, there is a tension between the disciplines, and till now this work is very much located in the disciplines, and the idea of intangible cultural heritage is an interdisciplinary one, an international one. And so we have to establish the framework of ICH in a much more important way. But still, this is in the making. And we, as the German Commission for UNESCO, we have tried the following. We want to actually to address the importance of common cultural heritage, or a common heritage, not only focusing in material cultural heritage, but the other fields of heritage also. Because one of the problems, I think, and we all know it, is the fragmentation. And we want to bring these things together. And when we say common heritage, we mean also nature. Not only culture, because 2/3 of the world is used by a human being. We are in the Anthropocene. That means in a period where this is very obvious that the human being determined very much the history of the planet. And in that context, we can also bridge to sustainable development, because that is related to nature. So this idea of creating an inclusive education with equal access for everybody, with a good quality and lifelong education, is immediately related to the idea of heritage. And also the notion of citizenship education goes in this direction. So that was my one point. The second point I would like to make is the following, that in the humanities, we have still to establish the notion of immaterial cultural heritage. We are working on it, but it takes time. And also the importance of heritage in general has to be transmitted to the humanities, because it's often considered as only a conservative attempt, and this is not the case. As we know, all creativity is related to history, to heritage. We are all zwergs on the shoulder of giants, if you take this image as one which expresses our situation. So in this sense, we are working on actually establishing the importance of cultural heritage and to relate this to education. This is our main point. And see, in education, our area is so important because it is body-based. It has to do with the senses, with aesthetic experiences. It's not just cognitive knowledge, it's related to emotions. Experiences of alterity can be made through intangible cultural heritage, and so on and so on. So we are interested in a complex understanding of what education is and how it relates to heritage in a creative way, in a dynamic way. And that is our task, and we are about to focus this in the next years. And we are getting more and more universities involved in this attempt also. And what is still missing is the networking between the universities, the cooperation. These are more individuals until now.
Thank you very much. It's very encouraging and inspiring to hear that there are all the possibilities that you're exploring. Annie, I would like to ask you perhaps if about the work that you're doing, because I know that you're taking a very active role in including intangible heritage in your teaching as a professor at St. Joseph University in Beirut. Could you tell us a little bit about how you're doing this work and what you're doing to include community-based inventorying and fieldwork in the classroom and in your teaching?
Thank you. En fait, je voudrais dire que nous avons à l'Université Saint-Joseph un département de sociologie et d'anthropologie qui, depuis la fondation de la faculté, s'est beaucoup occupé de la notion d'identité et de la culture, qui pose un grand problème au Liban, puisque c'est un pays constitué de 18 communautés et aussi sur un arrière-fond de guerre civile et de guerre latente. Nous avons besoin aussi de découvrir notre identité, et ce que professeur Wolf vient de dire trouve un peu son correspondant chez nous. Mais en fait, dans ce département, il y avait un cours qui s'intitulait « Culture populaire libanaise ». Et après notre insertion dans ce processus de la Convention, nous avons décidé de supprimer ce cours parce qu'il insérait une sorte de hiérarchie entre la culture et la culture populaire, etc. Et c'est dans le cadre d'un master en conception et mise en œuvre d'événements culturels et touristiques au département d'aménagement touristique que nous avons instauré un module sur le patrimoine et le développement local. Et dans ce module, nous avons institué une matière de patrimoine culturel immatériel. Et en fait, nous avons constaté une certaine réticence des jeunes par rapport à la réceptivité de ce nouveau concept. Mais nous avons fait en sorte qu'ils puissent dépasser un peu cette résistance compte tenu un peu de la situation au Liban. Donc, pour ce faire, nous avons pensé à promouvoir, à mettre en œuvre un projet sur le terrain de travail de terrain pour les pousser à découvrir qu'est-ce que patrimoine veut dire et qu'est-ce que patrimoine culturel immatériel veut bien vouloir dire. Donc ce projet a été financièrement appuyé par l'Agence universitaire pour la francophonie. Et donc nous avons choisi une région pilote qui se situe en dehors de tous les circuits touristiques pour que les étudiants n'aient pas à découvrir ce qui a été depuis tout le temps découvert et valorisé. Et donc, on leur a imposé, pas imposé, mais demandé de faire des inventaires selon un peu les critères d'inventaire de l'UNESCO. Donc, inventaire du patrimoine immatériel, inventaire du patrimoine matériel, mais aussi inventaire des œuvres artistiques dans la région. Et en fait, il devait clôturer ce cycle par la création d'un événement culturel qui mettrait en valeur tout ce qu'ils avaient découvert. Et c'est comme ça que finalement, grâce à ce projet, qu'ils ont pu toucher du doigt l'importance du patrimoine et notamment du patrimoine culturel immatériel qui est par le fait même intangible, donc difficile à saisir. Pour finir, je devrais aussi dire que nous pensons actuellement, nous avons trouvé que cette matière ne profitait qu'à un petit groupe d'étudiants en master. Et nous voulons que la notion de patrimoine culturel immatériel, comme le disait professeur Wolf, soit reliée à l'identité nationale. Et c'est dans ce sens-là que nous sommes maintenant en train de penser à créer un cours dans le cursus de licence ouvert à tous les étudiants de l'université qui s'intitulerait Patrimoine culturel immatériel et identité libanaise, pour que finalement dans un pays qui est une petite mosaïque, mais dont chacune des composantes se retranche dans son propre camp, qu'il y ait quand même une ouverture, une découverte de la part des jeunes, des uns et des autres, et donc recréer ce qui a été perdu durant la guerre civile, c'est-à-dire l'identité nationale.
Thank you very much for so quickly giving us insights into both the conceptual thinking as well as the practical application of how you've been successful. Barbara, if I could ask you about the work that you've been doing with the NGO, the Cross-Cultural Foundation of Uganda, which is currently coordinating an international assistance project aimed at raising awareness in 4 universities on the relevance of intangible heritage. What have you learned from your work so far about how universities in Uganda are integrating intangible cultural heritage?
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator, and good afternoon to you all. I must say that this project is in its early stages of implementation, and the activity done on research has actually gone beyond the 4 universities that are to be implemented in. What we have actually learned is that there is little going on in Uganda, especially because of the economic driving factors. What drives the development of courses at the university is much more demand-driven, and intangible cultural heritage is at a very low level. I must also say there is no university that is offering ICH as a standalone major course, but rather they are integrating ICH studies in major courses like sociology or rural development studies. So this leaves the young people who are the future policymakers, who are the future technocrats, with little appreciation and knowledge about ICH in general. The other thing I must also talk about is that there is limited professional expertise in this, in the higher institutions of learning, and I think the reason is a vicious cycle, because the instructors of ICH are drawn from the same pool and from the same system of education. So you'll find that ICH studies are very low. The interest is still low simply because of lack of awareness about the need of ICH and how it contributes to development. So you'll find that there is production of few people who are actually knowledgeable about ICH in depth, and therefore instructors also become very limited.
Thank you. This is very helpful to hear also about some of the challenges and the challenges that you've been trying to overcome. Christoph, if I could come back to you for a minute and ask you more about the challenges and what you see as the challenges in the work that you've been doing, and how you feel you could address these, or what advice you would have for the challenges that you've been facing.
Well, one of the big problems I'm aware of is the question, what about intangible cultural heritage in urban environment? You know, all the examples, almost all the examples we had here today are related to a rural area or small towns. But what about modern cities? What about mega cities? How do we conceptualize intangible cultural heritage in this area? This, I think, is a very important question, a research question, and we have to think along these lines. That means learning cities. We have to relate this concept to common heritage and to intangible cultural heritage. That would be one major point, I think, for the future to deal with. There are, of course, other points which are more related to our situation. So we were able to get the 16 states in Germany to the point that they are willing to inscribe ICH into the state curricula, or we are trying through workshops and conferences to raise the general consciousness of the importance of ICH. This is a very important point. You know, people participate, they have practices, but they are not aware of what they are doing in a certain way. They are not aware of the relationship this can have to alterity, to the understanding of people in other cultures, and so on. So I think there's a bunch of things to do, and as I said earlier, I think also we have to relate intangible cultural heritage to the other conventions, to the other dimension of heritage. You know, the famous 1972 convention, which puts the accent on natural sites and on cultural sites, like the Taj Mahal, for example, or cathedrals, they are often not aware of the fact that this is only possible because there is intangible cultural heritage, because there are practices with which these buildings could be built. So the interrelationship of, this is just an example, the interrelationship of the different types of of heritage, I think, is a challenge to us. And also to take up your idea, which you expressed in other places, the issue of creativity. We can be only creative when we take into consideration where we are historically and culturally. Then we can create new perspectives, new activities.
Thank you. You're full of so many ideas. I think we could speak for a very long time, but we have, unfortunately, only this lunch hour, so I'm trying to keep this short and quick, but it's wonderful to get these insights. Annie, just to ask about your ideas of, you already brought up some of the challenges as you spoke, you know, especially given the situation in Beirut and many of the conditions that the students are working in and that you're teaching in. But could you tell us a little bit more from your perspective what you see as some of the key challenges and how you've been trying to overcome them, or what advice you would have?
Moi, je suis principalement concernée par les jeunes qui vivent dans ce monde globalisé et qui sont parfois en rupture avec leur culture ou qui la dénigrent. Donc, je pense que l'un des défis, c'est de leur faire découvrir qu'ils sont eux-mêmes porteurs de ce patrimoine culturel immatériel, qu'ils le pratiquent sans le savoir, mais aussi qu'ils constituent eux aussi une courroie de transmission entre le passé et le futur. Et en fait, je pense qu'il faudrait faire en sorte qu'ils prennent conscience de cela et qu'ils sentent qu'ils sont aussi les garants de ce patrimoine culturel immatériel, évidemment de leur propre communauté, mais aussi à l'échelle nationale. C'est ce que, bon, en fait.
Thank you very much. Barbara, just to come back to you for a minute to ask you what you see as some of the future directions. Where do you think we can really push to integrate intangible cultural heritage in the universities?
Thank you very much once again. The good thing is that at least there is something that is happening in the universities in Uganda. So what we need to do as a strategy is to build on what is existing, and we grow it and strengthen it to another level. So I think the good thing that we have is that there is general willingness by the instructors, by the university administrators to actually take this on. When we visited them and talked to them, it was something that they embraced, and we feel at least the willingness is the beginning of our forging the way together to integrate ICH in universities. The other critical issue is there is need to make a very clear linkage between ICH and development. The moment people appreciate the value that ICH brings to them, I think it will be much easier for them to appreciate ICH and begin taking it on as a course. And major focus has to be with the young people for them to get to appreciate this. And I think the development of the tool on the relationship between ICH and sustainable development will be a key tool in helping on this. And finally, we propose to engage the public beyond the 4 universities, as we said. We want the impact to be a little bit beyond. And this we shall be doing through annual public events, public lectures where different universities come together, they share, and at the same time, CCFU as an organization will take lead in developing course units and guides on how to actually deliver ICH-related courses within the university. Documentation and sharing will also be critical for us as a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You really brought out some very important points around the integration of ICH and relating it to development, sustainable development. And so thank you. I think we will have more conversation on this. But just before I open up the floor, I'd like to ask you, Han, what the plan is for UNESCO Bangkok and ICHCAP to collaborate with universities in the Asia-Pacific region to further promote the agenda of ICH safeguarding, especially within the framework of the 2003 Convention.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I think I also see a lot of similarities, like what the speakers have been saying, in our region in the Asia-Pacific. So as part of the survey that we just conducted, we also try to watch the interest of the universities in collaborating with each other to further promote this agenda of teaching on ICH in universities. And we see that all universities who participated in the survey expressed a great interest and also willingness to contribute to a network or to a platform where we can bring all these actors together. So there's certainly a momentum to build on. Some universities have already expressed some of the interest in the actual activities that can be implemented. For example, they can organize joint events and research, share pedagogical resources, joint publication, created an online platform for everyone to contribute. And then there's one important thing to note, that most universities have very strong relationship and engagement with communities. And we see that this is one of the modalities that we can work with universities to reach to the communities level and then engaging the community. So now, at the moment, ICHCAP and we at the UNESCO Bangkok are discussing the possibility to have the first network meeting in 2018 to bring the existing actors together, but also leave room for anyone who's interested to join in, and then to together discuss on the ways that we can collaborate and the action plans that the universities can begin to work together. And also linking to the point that Professor Wolf was mentioning about linking between the conventions and between different kinds of heritage. For the last 17, 18 years, there's been this Asian Academy for Heritage Management has been ongoing. Now the activities a little bit dying out, so we are looking into reviving that network as well. And then initially it might be 2 parallel networks going on, but eventually, as exactly as our survey find out, there's a lot of potential to bring these 2 networks together and then promoting the integrated approach to teaching and safeguarding heritage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. These are some exciting prospects that we are looking at. I thank the panelists very much for the very quick comments. Since we have only a little bit of time, I wanted to see if we could open up the floor for your questions to the panelists, or your comments, your maybe your experiences that you could share with us. So the floor is open. It's already? Okay. Okay. Ahmed Skunti, please. Yes. And then we have... I would only request that Ahmed Skunti, please. He's in the back. Yeah, please. I would only request you to please use a microphone and identify yourself.
Merci beaucoup. Ahmed Skunti, professeur d'anthropologie à l'Institut national des sciences de l'archéologie et du patrimoine au Maroc, et membre de la délégation du Maroc à cette session. Je vous remercie pour cette réunion et pour les présentations. Je remercie les participants pour leur présentation succincte mais à la fois très instructive. Je vais être bref. 2 questions que j'aimerais souligner. La première, c'est relative à la recherche, puisque nous savons que les établissements de l'enseignement supérieur font de la formation, mais ils font aussi de la recherche. Alors, qu'en est-il de la recherche sur le patrimoine culturel immatériel? C'est une question importante, et je pense que la recherche peut être utile pour accompagner la mise en œuvre de la Convention. Je pense particulièrement à l'impact de la reconnaissance internationale sur les éléments. Et ça, c'est la recherche qui peut nous renseigner sur l'impact que peut avoir la reconnaissance que nous faisons ici au sein du comité des éléments qui sont inscrits sur les listes.
Thank you.
La deuxième, pardon.
Deuxième.
Excusez-moi, juste une deuxième question. C'est par rapport à ce que disait M. Wolf sur la relation avec la Convention de 72. Je voulais simplement souligner qu'il y a eu récemment à l'UNESCO, Madame Jyoti le sait, une réunion à l'UNESCO récemment dirigée par Mme Cameron sur la relation, sur le critère 6 de la Convention de 72 et sa relation avec le patrimoine immatériel, puisque le critère 6 du patrimoine mondial concerne également les traditions vivantes. Et je pense que cette réflexion est maintenant lancée sur le lien entre les deux conventions et la relation du patrimoine immatériel avec les sites du patrimoine mondial. Merci.
Thank you very much. Maybe we take a couple of questions more and then ask the panelists to respond. So I think there was somebody first who was sitting in the place of India. If you could please identify yourself. And then Dr. Iwamoto.
Let me introduce myself first. I am Professor Saifur Rashid, teaching anthropology at the University of Dhaka, Bangladesh. I would like to thank the panelists for very important comments and their experiences. And this is really very frustrating for countries like Bangladesh, but little bit changing slowly. I saw the survey of Bangkok office, and I did not find any university participated in that survey. So that can give you some idea about the status of heritage education in Bangladesh. We have around 100 universities, including public and private universities. There is a mushroom growing of private universities in the country. All the private universities, they are very natural. They are not looking at those sort of liberal arts or humanities. They are rather looking at the business, IT education and other things, and the market demand. At the same time, the public universities are also, to some extent, driving to survive and to earn more money. They are opening up evening courses and other things. I do agree with Professor Wolf and Barbara, because it is also a question of, how are you going to survive? How are you going to introduce any courses? Unfortunately, there is not a single university in the country, so far I know, they have any direct course on cultural heritage. Intangible cultural heritage, I'm sure all of you will agree that we have to think about bringing cultural heritage studies in a different name or in a different sort of way. You have to find some other way to, not talking about heritage, but also bringing those content of the heritage studies or intangible cultural heritage with political science, with sociology, with anthropology, even with architecture, climate change. So this is very important to integrate those subjects into the different disciplines. But the one more thing I want to say that, so what is the challenges for us, countries like Bangladesh, which has been going on various turmoils for last 50, 60, 70 years. We had 1971, Great War. We are still struggling for democracy. But the thing is that all these private universities and the public university, they are not showing their interest to open up. Very recently, we have introduced one course only at the Department of Anthropology. I have tried to introduce that course. But the thing is that it is very much, what happened in Bangladesh universities. Say, for example, UNICEF came with child rights issues. So what they did, they contacted with the universities. They proposed that, can you open up some courses? Can you introduce some courses? They provided fund. And they come up with, and finally they managed to introduce some courses on child rights. So if we want to introduce any course like intangible cultural heritage or broadly heritage studies or community and heritage, whatever the name, we can bring it in different names. But we have to think about how UNESCO can coordinate with the Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Education, and bringing those people to introduce 1, 2 course or subject discipline to different universities, even if necessary, providing some seed grant for doing research, providing some seed grant for books and journals and resource library, developing library, or introducing any course. Yeah. Okay then, thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Iwamoto, please.
Thank you. My name is Iwamoto. I'm Director General of IRCI, International Research Center for Intangible Cultural Heritage in Asia Pacific. Yeah, I echo with a little bit with what Dr. Skunti said. in higher education and research are not separable. Research, knowledge, higher education, knowledge, research. But please, let's make clear our standpoint. Research, UNESCO cannot, what is the discipline of intangible cultural heritage? It's a researchers' network. It's academic discussion that will sometimes nourish the content of intangible cultural heritage. But let's be rather pragmatic. As this paper said, in training future decision makers, planners, and administration to work in the field of ICH, what are important elements to be taught in higher education? For example, the knowledge on sustainable development, the knowledge on cultural diversity, or the capacity to convene many stakeholders in this field, or how to challenge another public powers, etc., etc. These kind of discussion can be very important through the network of tertiary education professors. This is my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. If there's one more question, maybe we could take one more and then turn to the panelists. Okay, maybe, please. But in the Botswana, please.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for your enlightful presentations. My name is Keletso Sehlabi. I teach archaeology at the University of Botswana. And I wanted to just share my experience that I teach ICH within cultural heritage module, and I like what the professor from Germany talked about, that if you link ICH to existing conventions, in my case it has been successful with the link to the World Heritage Convention, because that's what perhaps students, especially in archaeology and material studies, are very much used to. And I also like the opportunity of bringing in issues such as climate change, where humanity and knowledge has been there and existing. And these are big issues now in our lifestyle. And I'm just also thinking that there's an opportunity maybe for UNESCO to also bring in maybe one of the meetings in the future, two conventions where we can sit in with other colleagues who are dealing with maybe World Heritage or 1970 conventions. And at that level, we can meet together and see, and I'm stressing this because the totality of culture is so important. It is not just immaterial, but the material together. So I see that opportunity where we can also say that we all need each other from all the conventions that are there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think there was one last question for the moment from Turkey. If you could please introduce yourself.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am İrem Alpaslan. I am from the Turkish National Commission for UNESCO. I come from a law background, and I have a specific focus on cultural heritage in this sense. I would have three questions, if I may. First would be with regards to the relation between the synergies, especially with the 1972 Convention, to the speakers. Do they see any challenge or any threat to the idea of ICH? Because as there are also quite well-known synergies, but there are also maybe some different perspectives why there are two separate conventions. Do they see any challenge in this sense? The second will be with regards to the ICH, the value of ICH that were shared to the students. If I may ask very briefly, how would they they would express this value? How would they just, if they can share what they see as the value of ICH in this regard? And the third will be maybe a little bit more broader sense that, for example, we see in the very recent report of UNESCO on sciences, there is actually some parts in relation with indigenous knowledge. One is curious about knowing where is this related with ICH, and for example, is there any borders in between science and culture in this regard, or how is it related in UNESCO, or shall we think of broader synergies in sense of even sciences? Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think we have lots of very interesting comments and questions. Maybe if I could start with our panelists, and you've heard all the questions and see which ones. You don't have to feel obliged to answer every one of them, because maybe some other panelists will pick up on some others. But if you could answer the ones that you would like to most address.
Thank you very much for these very insightful questions and commentaries. There were often more commentaries than questions because you have your own experiences. I just want to take up 3 issues. One is the value issue. I think this is a very important point. And in my view, this relates, the basis are human rights, or as the Chinese do it, moral education. You know, I know about the differences, but still it goes also in the same direction to a certain degree at least. And so I think the value issues are extremely important. And also, that would be one point. And as I said, I related to human rights. The second point I would like to take up was what has been mentioned twice, actually. The ICH has 2 dimensions. It has the dimension of what we have in common. So what is the universal? But this is one dimension. The other dimension is what is particular and what is very different between, for example, Bangladesh and Western Europe. And this combination, I think, is in the center of anthropology today. In a globalized world, we have to consider how these the particular and the universal are interrelated. And it seems to me ICH is a very important field. And to take up the last point, in my view, and I'm referring it now to, let's say, to European universities, the chance to really to make ICH well known among the humanities is that we get people interested in it. And my argument would be it is actually a new paradigm of research in the humanities and an anthropological paradigm where we relate universal and particular. And this is the power of the concept of ICH, it seems to me, and that's what, through this you can also get professors interested, colleagues interested, and they will imply this in their teaching and also in doctoral thesis.
Thank you. Annie, if you would like to.
Moi, j'aimerais bien répondre à la question du professeur Skunti. En fait, la recherche reste l'une de nos préoccupations majeures. Elle n'est pas indépendante de l'enseignement. Elle se fait au niveau des mémoires, des thèses. Il ne faut pas oublier qu'il y a une longue, disons, expérience anthropologique avant la définition de ce nouveau concept. Et en fait, actuellement, nous sommes en train de remettre tout ça sous le label de patrimoine culturel immatériel et de faire travailler nos étudiants à ce sujet. Il y a aussi chez nous particulièrement une grande question qui nous préoccupe, c'est celle du patrimoine culturel immatériel et des conflits armés. Et nous avons initié une grande recherche actuellement à l'université sur la violence au Moyen-Orient et dans laquelle je participe à un axe bien défini qui est celui du patrimoine culturel immatériel et des conflits armés. Et là, nous essayons aussi disons, d'articuler la destruction du patrimoine matériel, la question de la destruction du patrimoine matériel à celle du patrimoine immatériel. Par exemple, la destruction d'une ville comme Alep en Syrie n'a pas uniquement endommagé les grands sites historiques, mais aussi fait disparaître des milliers de pratiques, de praticiens, de détenteurs de savoir, etc. Et donc, non, la recherche est là. On n'en a pas parlé parce que c'était plutôt évident pour nous, mais voilà.
Thank you. Barbara?
Yeah, I must also emphasize that research is really at the center of all this. And in the work that CCFU shall be doing, development of the course outlines and the tools to actually help the instructors to deliver ICH-related studies shall be informed by research, comparing with other institutions beyond Uganda, how they've been able to go about implementing ICH in universities. We shall get all that, put it together, and make sure that it is informed by research. And I must also agree with the professor from Bangladesh that yes, delivering such courses will require great creativity so that it triggers interest among the learners and at the same time instructors and administrators. Talking about how to express value of ICH among the learners, I must say this is going to take great efforts, and it's going to be efforts from all sides, the government, NGOs, and as much as also promoting awareness within the communities using various other means, not only through the university, but other works that we shall be doing. For example, to promote cultural entrepreneurship. What the learners need to know, or those who are about to get to tertiary institutions, the guiding issue is about how to survive after school and how to actually make people see that as much as you cannot attach economic value to culture, but one can actually make a living through culture. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Han, did you have a last comment to make? I think we are running out of time. Yeah.
I think, yeah, no, I think some of the points have been covered, so maybe I skip that. But there's just one point that may be related to the concern of the professor from Bangladesh and maybe other professors from Asia Pacific. It doesn't, when you haven't responded on none of the universities in your countries responded to the survey, doesn't mean that the network is close to you. So please just be in touch with us and keep watching out our website, because I think when we begin the work, and there will be still a lot of room for us to join, to work together. So please don't be despair, and I look forward to be working with you closely in the next coming years.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the panelists for so quickly and succinctly giving us their insights and sharing the presentations and thoughts, your experiences. And many thanks to all of you for sharing your thoughts, your questions, your experiences. This has been a quick but very enriching debate, and I hope that we can continue working together on this very important issue, and that the next time we will have more to report on more higher education programs that are integrating intangible cultural heritage. I want to thank also Suzanne Schnutgen from the Secretariat for organizing this. Thank you very much.